Let me give him a chance here to respond, Governor Kaine.
I knew George could find something wrong with a major transportation investment. Well, but I repeat what I said earlier. As a nation and as a Commonwealth, we are not building enough. And Rail to Dulles was a great example. It was a project that had been on the drawing board during many governors' terms, including Governor Allen. But we got it off the drawing board, and it's being built now, and it's employing people, and it's going to provide transportation solutions not only to Dulles Dulles Airport travelers, but to the entire region. And this is what we need to do for the economy. We have to level the playing field for small businesses so that they can succeed, so that they're treated fairly in taxes. We have big businesses that pay no taxes and small businesses who do. We need to invest in talent and infrastructure. And then we need to solve these budget issues, Candy, that we talked about earlier, the right way, not the wrong way. The all-cuts approach to budget balance that George Allen has outlined after taking the Grover-Norquist pledge would be devastating to Virginia and devastating to the national economy. Infrastructure spending is part of making America's economy stronger.
Okay, now your second opportunity to ask one another questions, and Governor Kaine, you get to ask the first question.
George, you propose to, at the federal level, pass personhood legislation that would define life as beginning at conception and granting all rights of persons from that moment forward. Why would you claim to be a small government guy and propose what would be such a dramatic reach into people's personal lives and moral decisions?
Well, one of the things you've said on this issue often, Tim, is that it's about contraceptives. And I would never want to ban contraceptives. This is about protecting an unborn child and its mother. I think that here's will be the impact of this. If a pregnant mother is attacked and she's injured, and moreover her unborn child is injured, I think the criminal ought to be held accountable for not only attacking the pregnant mother, but also the unborn child. And that's why I look at this as very close to the bill I co-sponsored, was Unborn Victims of Violence Act, and I believe that criminals ought to be held accountable for their crimes. Tim, as I mentioned, I've traveled throughout Virginia listening to people, and the issue that comes up is not this. What comes up is issues about jobs and what are you going to do to make sure there's more opportunities for families. That's why I'm running on our America's Comeback, our blueprint that'll get our country more competitive for investment in jobs. And indeed, energy is part of it, from the coal fields to our coast. And in fact, on day one, you asked, what am I to do on day one? On day one, if I'm hired by y'all to represent you in Washington, I'm going to introduce a bill to allow us in Virginia to produce oil and natural gas off our coast, and then use those royalties for roads and transportation, and not have it with project labor agreements that discriminate against non-union workers, as your folks did on the MWA board on the Dulles Toll Road, which would make people pay higher tolls. Now, I made jobs number one as my claim on time, my claim of my time as governor. And we were able to create over 300,000 new jobs, not us, but our conditions in the private sector. Your approach, though, Tim, has been to try to raise taxes, to raise tuition, and Virginians lost over 100,000 jobs while you were governor. And so I think you should I always will put the people of Virginia first and foremost in my mind, in every decision I make, is what's in the best interest of the hardworking, tax-paying families of Virginia.
And George, I did exactly the same thing. The difference between our governor terms is that you were governor in one of the longest expansions of the national economy, that Bill Clinton. He was a heck of a president. I was governor during the worst recession since the 1930s, a recession largely pushed because of the kinds of fiscally irresponsible policies you were promoting as a U.S. Senator. And so, sure, I had to govern in a very, very tough time. But I kept Virginia's unemployment rate one of the lowest in the nation. I kept our median income one of the highest in the nation. I think our GDP relative to other states was actually better when I was governor than when George was governor. I have some scar tissue from governing in tough times, and I happen to think it's going to come in handy up in Washington. I asked you the question about personhood because I also believe that what people want to focus on is jobs in the economy. But you have a track record of pushing divisive social legislation, whether it's the personhood bill, whether it's not standing up against these mandatory ultrasounds, whether it's voting against the Family Medical Leave Act, whether it's trying to support a blunt amendment that would take contraception coverage away from women, or being against paycheck fairness for men and women. You pursue these agendas that hurt women in the economy, and I would have a very different approach as a senator.
Governor Allen, we are at the point where
I get to ask him a
you
question.
can answer. Yes, you've got a minute. Sorry.
Okay. Look, we've heard this rhetoric before from you, Tim. Let's look at the reality. I'm not running on those issues. I'm running on jobs. Now, you talk about budget cuts, but Virginia, at the end of your term, had a larger state workforce than at the beginning of your term. You talk about sound management, but an audit found over $1 billion sitting in VDOT accounts at the very time you were pleading for more taxes and closing rest stops and pleading poverty. You, in my view, through it all, had the increase in tuition while you were governor and so forth. Now, will you finally acknowledge that you made a mistake in the last year of your term as governor, taking on the most partisan job in America as chairman of the Democratic National Committee, when you had all of this going on in Virginia? Do you regret putting the partisan agenda ahead of your responsibilities to the people of Virginia as governor?
George, I'm not a hard partisan, and I've never been. You can serve with honor in a party role. George H.W. Bush, RNC chair. George Allen, chairman of the Republican Senate Campaign Committee. Bob McDonnell, chairman of the Republican Governors Association. Jim Gilmore, chairman of the Republican National Committee. All those things were fine with you. What Virginians care about is results. That's what they care about. When Virginians get asked to assume leadership positions, it's often because there's something good about Virginia. But what Virginians care about is results. And I'm very proud of my results in 2009, the year that I was governor and DNC chair. I was governing in the worst recession since the 1930s. In 2009, we worked together in the legislature to do a historic piece of good work, banning smoking in restaurants and bars. Bill Howell, my Republican speaker, and I came together after 3 years to do that. We got the hat trick. All three major publications that identify what is the best state for business in the United States named Virginia as the best state. We brokered the deal first with the Bush administration and completed it with the Obama administration to get $900 million to extend rail to Dulles. We attracted these companies to invest in Virginia. Hilton moved their headquarters here. SAIC moved their headquarters here. Canon and Rolls-Royce did major expansions here. Northrop Grumman called me in my last few days of office saying, "You've worked on us for 4 years. We're coming from California to the D.C. area, and guess what? Virginia's going to have a great shot at getting us." We made big expansions and improvements and positive achievements in preserving open space and reducing infant mortality, and reformed sexual violence laws that treated women as second-class citizens. That's what I did in 2009 when I was governor, putting Virginia first. Now, you had a different track record. You were also chair of the Republican Senate Campaign Committee when you were a U.S. Senator. You said when you got elected, my #1 job is to elect Republicans. Not be a good senator and #2 job elect Republicans. My #1 job is to elect Republicans. And during your years taking that partisan role, the results at the federal level were increasing deficits, a weakening economy, debt ceiling increases, voting to increase your own pay. These things were happening on your watch when you were chairman of the Republican Senate Campaign Committee.
Governor Allen, 60 seconds.
Yes, when I left the United States Senate, Tim, with the tax cuts we got through and the trajectory towards a balanced budget, the unemployment rate in the United States was 4.4%, nearly half of what it is these days. Now, Tim,